What's up? It's Willie McGinnis, three-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots, and I'm hanging out with my man Chris Palme, okay? Chris does a podcast, 30 Minutes Live with CDP Podcast, every Wednesday and Friday night on Twitter, Facebook, and his YouTube channel. Make sure everybody tunes in, okay, to my man Chris Palme's podcast. Again, it's every Wednesday and Friday night on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Make sure you guys check him out.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Live with CDP podcast on this Thursday, October 21st. I can't believe October's almost done. I'm looking forward to my guest today, Doug Pflug. I hope I pronounced his last name right. He's a retired longtime police officer, sergeant in the city of Guelph, and he's also the strengths and conditioning coach and peer mentor for the Guelph Storm for the last 26 years. And he's also a peer mentor involved with the University of Guelph Griffins football club as well. And he's also been a Special Olympics coach for 20 years in the city of Guelph as well. So just give me a minute, guys, and I will bring on Doug today. And I really appreciate Doug's time coming on today. So one moment, I'm going to bring on Doug.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm okay. How are you today?
I just live in the dream, trying to live every second of every day, my friend.
Same here. Thank you again so much for coming on today.
I'm honored just to be part of this, and hopefully by the end of this, we can help some people improve their heart, their body, and their mind. And when they wake up tomorrow, they're going to have a better day.
Yes, and it took me about 47 years to find what I wanted to do and find my passion, and now I'm trying to do it at 49, and hopefully one day I will get an opportunity in radio from doing this podcast.
You know, it's one of those things that I don't believe in luck. I believe in good fortune. And the fact that you've done this, you're understanding your why, as I like to do, is once you understand your individual why, you know how and what to do to accomplish that. So I've got a lot of respect for you getting off in the main train tracks of life, deciding to change and make some change in your life, and not sitting and bitching about the way life is, but actually taking real steps to make your future happen. So you will create a lot of good fortune in the future.
Well, thank you, Doug. And like I said, I've always loved sports. I've always loved talking to people. And when I was younger, Doug, I did okay in school, but I didn't apply myself as much as I could have. And they didn't have this technology back then. And I wish they did, because I think it would have changed what I would have taken. But you know what? You're right. It's never too late to change.
It's so true. I did 28 years with the Guelph Police Service. I loved my job. I really loved working for the community, but I thought that there was something more that I needed and wanted. And I made a change at 50. So, back when I was about 47, I went back to school. I went to Cornell University, and I earned several certificates from them, highlighted by an executive leadership certificate. Realizing that we all have an expiry date on what we're doing, that's when I applied to the Ontario Police College. And had I not gone through that personal time of reflection, upgraded my academic skills, I wouldn't have had the job, which is a dream job that I started when I was 51 years of age.
Wow. And I thought about going back to school too for radio, but I've had some people tell me that what I'm doing now is enough. And like you said, you're never too old to go back to school or keep learning.
It's true. And once you understand where you want to go, that's when you have to get the roadmap to get there. That's when you draw on all the experiences you had through your life, and collectively you get to that point. So, nowadays we see that conventional education is important, but that's more of as a background. But if you can get something as specialized as you're doing right now, and you throw your passion behind it, people can't replace passion for the IQ stuff. And when I teach a lot, we talk about the IQ, or the intelligence quotient, on learning, the specifics of a job. EQ is the hard part, teaching people how to lead, teaching people how to work. And if you've got a bit of the IQ, but man, you've got that accelerated EQ, that's where you're going to be successful. And I'm sure you will be.
Well, thank you. And like I said, I'm learning every day on my podcast. I'm also learning with Rogers TV as a camera operator, which I love doing for the Guelph Storm games. It makes me feel like I'm a part of the team, and Rogers has been really good as well. And I'm just glad I can get back to doing that again and being in an arena and being around the Storm players too.
It is, and it's a great environment for success. I once listened to I actually went to a motivational speaker, Les Brown, and he was talking about his points of success for life. It was to get rid of negative people in your life and surround yourselves by exceptional people. And then you're going to basically rise yourself up to that standard. So it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're around the Guelph Storm, you're around Rogers, you're around a lot of real good consummate professionals. So learn from them to the best of your ability and bring yourself up to their standard. And that's what success is all about.
And I was going to say, I've also made a lot of contacts doing this and even new friendships. And this is something, this doesn't really work to me. This is something I really enjoy. And it just, like I said, it took me a while to find my passion, and hopefully I'll get that opportunity one day, Doug.
And good for you. And from what I'm hearing, you've got a good radio voice. So keep her up.
Thank you so much. And I did put on your social media on here too. This StreamYard, which one of my friends in Philadelphia, got me on to help me with my podcast, has been great because I can show video clips of my guests' work, and I can promote their websites and social media accounts on my graphics as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And again, that's where you're going to be multifaceted. And when the product that you deliver, you just can't sit here and have me talking. But if you've got lots of different stimulus for people so that they know where to go, how to go, and even have stuff to do that beyond what the podcast is today, that's the extra value that we can present for people.
Okay. Are you okay with about 40, 45 minutes? Is that okay time-wise?
You got me as long as you want, my friend.
Okay, no problem. I always ask because every guest has a different schedule. So I just try to roll with the punches and stuff like that.
Well, I'm here to help you, my friend.
Okay. First one, Doug. Can you tell my audience just a little bit about yourself, and when did you decide to pursue a career in policing?
Oh man, I grew up in Waterloo, and for a time period and a time frame, my parents went on a little bit of some hard luck, so we lived in some government housing. And I remember I was about 7 or 8 years of age, and an officer came through, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, this officer is like a superhero. You saw his cruiser, you saw his tool belt, and he actually stopped and talked with us, and he was thirsty, so we got him a glass of water, and he sat with us, and his name was Charlie Hunter. And it was just amazing that this superhero would actually talk to me. And when he was talking about why he became a police officer, it was, the whole serve and protect, and it was being a better person just to help society. And that really sparked an interest in me. I was bullied pretty extensively from grade 6, 7, 8, and even going into grade 9, where one of my teachers decided to call me Fatty Pflug, and that I was a piece of welfare trash and I'd never amount to anything. And I really realized the power that an adult can have in a young person's life. And luckily for me, I had a great peer group. All my buddies were elite athletes at the time, and I was shorter and I was heavier set. I wasn't the athlete that I became to be because I just hadn't grown yet. Grade 11 or 12, I met one of my high school teachers, John Cater. He played in the CFL, and he taught me how to believe in myself. And he taught me that the skill sets that I'd been given and how to fine tune those and hone those just for the betterment of using my sports as a conduit to all the wonderful things that I'd wanted to do. In grade 12, my whole world was rocked. I was walking my buddy Ram Tumker home to the bus stop. Ram was bullied a little bit when we went to high school. And at this point, I was captain of the football team, the wrestling team, and the track team. And Ram would actually wait for me at the end of every practice just so I could walk him to the bus stop so he wouldn't get bullied. And I remember it was clear as it was yesterday, but we were talking. He was telling me how he was going to go to India. He and his sister were going to see their grandmother. They hadn't seen her for a long time. And that when he got back, he was going to give me a call. And I remember just shaking his hand saying, buddy, next year is going to be amazing. It's grade 13. With me being the captain of those 3 teams, I want you to ride on my coattails, and I'm going to take you, and help you as much as I could. Several weeks later, our world was rocked when I found out that he was blown up in the Air India crash back in 1985, 86. And at that time, I really reevaluated myself, and I thought, here I am trying to be a bodyguard or an anti-bullying strategist for one person, but, a global crisis took him away from me. So at that point, I really started to realize that it was either going to be teaching or policing, because I wanted to be that positive male role model in my life, like a lot of males had been for me. Some of my buddies grew up without dads, and I honestly believe that a child needs both parents to raise them. And I'm not discrediting single parent families, but I knew that some of my buddies really wished that they had a dad in their life, like I did as well. Went to university. I played football and I wrestled. I was okay at it. I was never a great, when I look back, I was a second string tailback. I'm okay with that in university. I don't need to pump up the stats because they didn't exist the way they do nowadays. But again, it was all about growing and learning how to be the best me that I could be. Then in 1989, I applied to the Guelph Police Service because I was in school at the University of Guelph. I thought the process was going to take me about a year and a half to get a job. By July, they offered me a job, and I didn't finish my university at the time, but I was fed up with eating Kraft dinner 15 times a week, and I took the job, and I began an incredible career working with some amazing folks at the Guelph Police Service. I have nothing but praise for some of the leadership that I was around, the positives. And again, even the negative experiences that I had, as long as you can take those, tweak them, make them better, make them your own, or fix them, then the bad that happens in our life can actually be a motivational force to being even better in the future.
I was going to say, Doug, I've not said this to too many people or even on my podcast, but I lost my father when I was 13, December 23rd, 1985, 2 days before Christmas. And I had to grow up real quick, and it changed my life. And I had a principal in school. I was in grade 7 or 8 at the time that told me I would drop out of school and I wouldn't amount to anything. And that motivated me to continue to do well in school. And then I did go to college for law and security. And then, like I said, I sort of can relate to your story a little bit.
I appreciate that. When we look at it, there are people in our lives, regardless of what time frame they come into our life. Like right now, you said you're starting this new career. There are people that are going to say no. But you can't look at no as something that's going to shut you down. I like to look at no as basically an abbreviation for next opportunity. As you go through life and you do a lot of positive things and you make those positive steps, it's almost like laying stones in a garden to go out into a path. As you walk out, eventually you might have a big wall in front of you. And you might look at that wall and go, oh my God, this thing is so big. How do I get around it? And that wall will say no. What I would encourage people to do is take 1 or 2 steps back to those positions of success or positivity. And when you look at that wall, you see it's only 3 feet wide. All you need to do is take a step to the right and walk right by that wall. So, people in our lives that tell us we can't do something, well, I like to go by the thing. If you tell me I can't, well, I'm going to show you I can. And I'm glad to see that you didn't let someone like that shut you down, because then they would have won. Success is always your best revenge. And I'm really proud to hear that you didn't let that shut you down. And so many people will let them shut that down. They just need to be inspired internally. You were, and I'm so proud of you for doing that.
Well, thank you so much. And it did change my life. And I did end up getting involved with Big Brothers here in Guelph. And then I actually became a Big Brother for 16 years as well. So sometimes things happen for a reason, Doug, and it changes your life. But I never quit or gave up. And that's because of my mom as well. She was a strong person. And like I said, that's why I'm letting you tell you this, because of your story as well, Doug, because everybody's life is not always perfect.
And that's true. And some people will look on how you are at where you are right now and they go, oh my God, you're lucky to have your life. Well, behind everyone's life, and it's the same thing behind everyone's smiles, in your mind and in your heart, there are a wealth of bad situations that people went through. So just because you see someone present happy today, that's where it's up to all of us to talk with people. With social media, with COVID, everything's been shut down and people really lost the ability to talk with people, but have real meaningful conversations, not to someone, but with someone. And then you can learn and harvest some of this amazing knowledge that they had. And look what you've done. You were, you went into Big Brothers, but then you just didn't leave it at that. You took it and you paid it forward for 16 more years. It was a positive male role model in the lives of several young men. The gifts that you gave them, man, you can't put a price on that. So that's where I really encourage everyone is find your niche, find a way to give back, and make sure you do that. Denzel Washington, one time, there was a speech that he said, if you're not giving of yourself to somebody else, you're wasting your time. And I strongly believe in that. And that's been a major motivator for me my entire life is how can I make someone's life better because I'm there than worse.
Definitely agree. I was always brought up to always give to others who are less fortunate. And whatever you said, Doug, I totally agree with you there. And like you said, we're not on this planet for a long time, so it is important to give back to others. And I'm very fortunate right now that I have this platform and opportunity to hopefully change careers as well. And I was going to say, Doug, one of the biggest things with volunteer work is you're right, giving back, and it makes you feel good with Big Brothers, helping kids for many years, and then with the Guelph Humane Society as well. And I've always admired your volunteer work in the city of Guelph, especially with Special Olympics.
Thanks very much. And the thing for me, and I would challenge people, the university football team, I don't get paid for it. The Guelph Storm, I don't get paid. Special Olympics, I don't get paid. And the reason I bring that up is if you get paid to do something, then it's not volunteerism. It becomes a job. And I honestly believe that because I've been successful with my different coaching, counseling, mentoring of youth in all different spheres of influence, it's because I had a passion to do it. I had a passion that I wanted to make lives better. And how can you really say that you've got a passion when you're getting paid for it? right? So in this situation, it's so important. And you just never know. We were talking about your relationships and meeting people. After we're done today, I'm going to go back to hospice because one of my Special Olympians his name is Donnie Wurr. He's an amazing guy. He's got cancer. He's been in there since July 1st. But you want to see someone who's appreciative of the volunteerism and the friendships. We go in there every second day. I visit him. We fist bump. He knows his end is near. But I want to make his end as comfortable as possible, know that he's loved, know that he's mattered, but more importantly, know that he's not going to be forgotten. So that's the power that we all have through coaching, counseling, and mentoring people, is we can let them know they matter and let them know that their existence on life wasn't a waste. It was here for the betterment of others.
I was going to say, and the hospice does really good work because of this with the people situations and that is really important. And I probably should get a little more involved with that as well.
And they do a fantastic spot, and you figure the weight of reality that they have, that they know people go there to die, and that doesn't shut them down. That motivates them to make sure that they make the last time that these people have as earthly beings is going to be as comfortable as possible. And I have the utmost of respect for the folks that work there. Excuse me, I had never been to a hospice prior to Donnie. And when I went in there, I felt really weird about it because I just didn't know. And I'm walking away knowing that when he does take his final breath, that, he's going to be remembered. And when I retire from the real time, I retired from the police department. Now I teach at the Ontario Police College. But when I retire for good, I definitely want to make a hospice a place that I drop my hat and make sure I donate some time to those incredible people.
Definitely. My next question I wanted to ask you, Doug, is where did you attend university, and did you have any mentor or mentors when you were in school and then when you first broke into the Guelph Police Services?
In high school, my favorite mentor, I had two of them. There was John Cater. He was a high school football coach. When I turned 40, I actually went around to thank everyone who had been there for me, and they saw something in me at a time that I didn't know. The funny thing was, he didn't realize what he had done, and I'm glad because he has since passed away, so I was able to say thank you. I had to upgrade my marks in high school because like you, I wasn't a good student. I was too busy doing everything else, and I had to upgrade my marks to go to university. And a fellow, Mr. Goddard, Ed Goddard, was my guidance counselor at Blue Vale Collegiate in Waterloo. And man, oh man, that guy did everything humanly possible to help me because he believed in me as well. And he even wrote a letter to the University of Guelph admissions because he was a University of Guelph grad as well to try to help me to get in, and I did. The university was fantastic. I had some amazing people in my life. There was John Musselman, who was my coach at the time. I'm actually releasing a book in January, and I speak to John's relationship and what he had done for me. When I started policing, I had some amazing folks that just took me under the wing. I know that you probably know Officer Attila. Attila introduced himself to me very early on in my career, and we started a friendship. There was a guy, Tommy Gill, and Pat Milligan, and just a whole lot of great young officers that I grew up with. But beyond that, I had some incredible supervisors, Morris Obergan, Harry Schnurr, Chief Stewart and I are still good friends. Chief Davis and I are still good friends. So I've been blessed by having a lot of cool people in my life that saw that I had some potential, and they helped me to realize that. A lot of times I wasn't ready to realize that potential, but they invested in me. And that's one of the motivating factors why I continue to invest in people moving forward. As for mentors today, as silly as some people might think, my wife is an incredible woman. She is she resigned from the Peel Regional Police as a sergeant. She teaches at the police college, but I really look up to her for a lot of the things that she's accomplished and some of the barriers that she's broken. I've got my father in my life, my mom. I'm fortunate to have all of my parents, my in-laws. So it's not anything that I have a formal mentorship moving forward today, but I've got a lot of really special people that believe in me and they believe in my potential. And they help me move forward. So that's why I say that if you can get a chance to mentor someone in your life, you're going to give them tools, skill sets that you can't put a price on, but you're going to, again, let them know that it's okay to be themselves, but you're going to help them to rise up and excel. And that's why my website was www.riseupandexcel.ca. I just thought it was fitting that all of these people that collectively came into my life helped me to rise up and excel to be the person that I am, or who I was, who I am, and who I'm going to be moving forward.
I was going to say, and the biggest thing in life is to have self-confidence in yourself, believe in yourself, and then others will believe in you as well. And also, I've been learning too from even doing a podcast is having a strong support system too. People that believe in you, and you can go to them for advice or get feedback from them as well.
And that's so true. And the big thing we're seeing in law enforcement right now, and it's quite sad, is some of our members are dying by their own hand. You know, a lot of law enforcement officers, or first responders in general, see some of the most horrific things that people can do to each other. You know, and I had a really bad mental health crash in 2007. And luckily, I had a good support network that I went and got some counseling. And something that was potentially meant to disable me for the rest of my life turned out to be one of the biggest learning lessons of my life that helped me form what I call finding your granite. And that's what the book is called, Finding Your Granite, My Four Cornerstones of Personal Leadership. And through the book, I talk about my life in depth all the way to as we're speaking right now. But in the end, when I crashed and I had a mental health crisis in 2006, my counselor, Mary Margaret, helped me find my granite. And that granite was based on my four core values that I learned so long ago from my friends and from my parents. And then once that brought me down, I was able to, you know, put my feet firmly planted on the ground and rise up and excel. And that's why at this point in my life, I just want to help people who are in a period of darkness and realize that when they're in the darkness, the light isn't a switch on the wall. It's a light that you find within yourself. And once you turn that light on, that's when you can start going from that, take that first step from being a victim of a situation to a survivor. And that's my main goal and focus moving forward, is to help people out of their darkness.
I was going to say, where will this book be available when it is? Where can people buy it?
I don't know the logistics of it, but people can follow the riseupandexcel.ca. Right now, I've been putting out some pretty cool reviews from some very famous people that are friends of mine every 2 weeks, but it's going to come out in January. But if you follow my social media, Twitter at IronWill360, Instagram IronWill360, or at the www.riseupandexcel.ca, purchase details will come out there. And the thing that's important for me is this book, much like my community service work, I didn't get paid for, and any funds that are generated from the sale of this book, all the funds will go to a charity that I've jumped on board with called veteransandeverydayheroes.ca, and it provides a service dogs for our frontline workers that might have suffered from a post-traumatic stress injury. So that's kind of where it's coming from right now. But so far we've had Jim Barker from the Argos. He's done a review. Chris Lewis, my friend Naomi Sneakus. She was Bobby in the show Mr. D on CBC, the gym teacher. Johnny Augustine, one of my proteges that I've mentored for a long period of time. Rich Peverly, Stanley Cup champion, who I've mentored since he was in high school. Adam Kanakin, another podcast host. So I've got 8 folks that are very prestigious in their own spheres of influence, but they've jumped on board, they've read the book, and now they're helping me market it. Again, they're helping me because they realize, one, that the message needs to get out there, but they are so into giving of themselves because all the money is going to charity. Not one penny is coming into my pocket. Everything's going to go to the website, and it's www.v-eh.ca. That's Veterans and Everyday Heroes. And again, the scary thing I learned when I hooked up with them, it's $18,000 for one personal care dog for a worker. So my goal is through the sale of this book that hopefully I can raise one dog so one frontline worker doesn't feel alone, and it can help them with some of their post-traumatic stress injury symptoms.
I had no idea. I'm definitely going to have to buy a copy of your book as well, because like I said, I definitely would like to support that cause, and I would like to read some of your life experiences in this book as well.
Yeah, and I'm honored with that. And again, you know, the book is about me, but it's to help we. And that's the philosophy that I have in life. I don't think about me anymore. I think about we and how that I can use me for the betterment of we. And that's where this is a great vehicle to do that.
Okay, definitely. My next question I wanted to ask you, Doug, is what did you enjoy the most about policing, and what was the hardest aspect of the profession, if you found there was any hard aspects of it?
The thing I loved the most was coming into people's lives when they were probably having their absolute worst day and making it a little bit better. There are so many people right now in trauma, and they just want to take a breath. And I really challenged myself in as many calls as I could to go out there and be a positive police officer and make sure that I made their life better, that I came in it then worse. Was I successful all the time? No. But I would say that, and people always want to be excellent or perfect. I want to be perfect in everything I do too, but I realize that perfection is not the goal. Perfection comes through the execution of the goal. Because even if we don't finish with the perfect end, as long as we've done everything that we could in a perfect sense, then we're never really going to fail. The hardest aspect of the profession, for me, honestly, was seeing some of the human trauma and tragedy that I had to go in and try to help mitigate, and seeing the collateral damage that it had on my fellow officers and even the people that were involved. Sometimes, I wake up with night terrors still. Sometimes I have terrible flashbacks. And that was the toughest thing. When I was raised as a police officer, it was under the sphere of real men don't cry and suck it up, buttercup. And, it was a very toxic masculinity environment. I'm glad to see now that, and I see that on the front end at the police college, that the road to mental readiness training that they're giving is incredible. And they're really realizing that you're putting everyday human beings into some of the most horrific things people can see, not on a 3 or 4 month deployment like some of the military folks, and not to discredit them, but these are a compression of stress over 25 to 30 years that it's layered and layered and layered and layered. I'm really happy to see now that all organizations are realizing that there is a tremendous mental health weight on our officers, and they're starting to give them systems and infrastructure now to help deal with it at the time, in the future, and then moving forward. So, policing for me was all about people. I love my friends with the fire department, but when my friends go and fight a fire, the building doesn't smile at the end of the day. And that was the neat thing with policing, is I could go in there and I would try to be the best I could be to elicit one simple smile as a kind of a thank you moving forward.
Oh, I was going to say, and I guess another part aspect is, I guess you're working shift work too. You're working days, midnights, 12-hour shifts, and it can probably be hard on the family life as well.
The shift work was difficult because a lot of times you weren't around. But on the flip side, to put the positive there, when you've got a Tuesday and a Wednesday off, you get to go on field trips with your kids. How many kids can say that mom and dad can come on a field trip? And it was great. I learned a lot of stuff on the field trips. But, sometimes you're not there. But when we worked at back then, it was called the 535. So you'd work 7 night shifts in a row. So I would be awake to take the kids to school. I would sleep during the day. I would get awake to pick them up from school. I would go to bed before work. So I got to see them those 7 days. Then afterwards, there were 7 days off. I was 100% dad. I was there. The only times that I really didn't get a chance to see them that often were the afternoon shifts. And out of a 35-day rotation, there were 7 of those shifts. But for me personally, I wasn't the guy that was going out playing hockey 5 times a week. Once my girls' sports became their lives, I shut all my stuff down. I took all my overtime, all my holidays. I was, there as a dad and as a coach as much as humanly possible. And sometimes people couldn't believe that I was there so much, but I had some great supervisors at the Guelph Police Service who realized that my why was giving of the community, and they knew that I needed to coach those kids and mentor them. So they allowed me the opportunity to do that to the best of my abilities. And the shift work was bad, but it was also good. And then on a funny note, when your family doesn't know that when you're working all the time, if you got Aunt Bertha's birthday party, you just say I'm working, and no one's going to know anyways, even if you didn't want to go.
That's true, and I'm within the security industry, which I am, and I know what it's like to do the shift work and all that. And there are some advantages to working the night shifts, like I said, because it gives me more flexibility to do my podcast if my guests can only come in the daytime or afternoon. So I've been able to do my regular job, do my podcast full time, and still do volunteer work with Rogers TV and the Guelph Nighthawks as well.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's the only bad thing about shift work that I saw. Once I stopped working shifts, I used to be good for the vomit flu 3 times a year. Since I've been at the police college for 5 years now, I haven't been sick once. And that's because my body's allowed proper rest. I focus on nutrition, hydration, and I'm allowed to eat normal times. I'm allowed to drink normal times. I'm allowed to sleep normal times. And I know that the past 5 years, my health is just my immune system is just going through the ceiling, which is fantastic because I'm getting a little bit older and I'm going to need that. But that's the only bad thing with shift work is if you don't get a chance to leave it for a little while and you're doing shifts constantly. And with those shifts, it was up, down, all around. That was really devastating towards my health.
Definitely. Okay. Next question I wanted to ask you, Doug, and this one comes into what we just talked about. Can you just describe how much policing has changed over the years since you first became an officer? You were an officer in 1989 until the time you retired, and I think it was 2018 you retired.
Yeah, it was 2016.
Okay.
The way it's changed is more on the technology. Back when we started policing, we would get out of the cars and we would talk with people. And that's what we teach now for community policing. Get out of your car and talk with people. Back when I started, you could actually have a situation because it wasn't call to call like it is now. You could actually get out of the car and talk with people. You could walk the beat more. You could attend more meetings. You could get out of the cruiser and shoot a few baskets with some kids because there wasn't that priority one emergent call for service that would take you away from that. Then back around the early 90s when the funding towards mental health was drastically slashed, a lot of people that were getting mental health care became out on the street. So, policing went from being a situation where you enforce laws that we became social workers and mental health workers. And that really, really bogged a lot of our resources down. Recently, I know in Guelph about 7 years ago, they started mobile crisis workers working with the police officers that are mental health workers. And that's really alleviated a lot of the calls for service where you're bringing the subject matter experts in to assist us. So one of the biggest classic shifts is in 1990, the Police Act changed and we went from being a police force to a police service. And that paradigm shift began where we couldn't do everything. And now as we see policing moving over, we realize that we don't have to run every meeting, but we need to have a face at the table. So we're empowering other people that have the subject matter expertise to do a lot of the interventions. And we're just an equal person at the table. We don't have to run everything because police, you just don't have the resources to be everything to everybody.
I was going to say, and also I wanted to ask you as well, how did you end up coming about volunteering with the City of Guelph? Did you do it, were you volunteering before you became a police officer, or did you start doing it when you first joined the Guelph Police Services in 1989?
We joked about the high school marks. My marks were really bad. I think I had about a 65 average, but even back then I realized the power of giving back. So I was on the school's athletic committee where you'd run us few certain things. And, at the end of the day, it was a great resume item for when I went on, but I really learned the positive opportunities and the experiences and the feeling of helping people. So I tested the water there a little bit, but I was so focused to try to go to university because I didn't have a lot of financial means that I was playing football, I was wrestling, I was in track. I worked 30 hours a week at the grocery store. So my time to volunteer was very, very minimal. When I became an officer with the Guelph Police, it was fantastic because the torch run came out that fall. And I started getting involved with Special Olympics there on the fringes. And then the year afterwards, I don't know if you know him, but Dan Yarmy was a friend of mine, or is a friend of mine. He was our sports psychologist at the University of Guelph. He was coaching high school football at Our Lady of Lourdes. He said, look, we're trying to get some community coaches. Would you like to come and help out? So we were really fortunate in 91. I helped coach that season. And, you've got teachers that were on that team, like Mr. Cummings from both Mr. Cummings from St. James. You've got Sil DiBattista, who's a teacher. A lot of phenomenal young men I met then. And I built a trust with them because I donated my time for coaching football. So from 91 to 96, I coached senior football in the fall, and I coached the junior football in the spring. I was involved with track. But I really found it amazing that you could go into people's lives because they wanted you there and they liked you being there. And that was a nice balance with policing because, as I said, a lot of times you go into people's lives and they don't want you there, and so you're getting pushed away and you're getting shunned from certain elements of society. At Lady of Lourdes, they treated me amazing and they made me one of their family. And, the more I was giving to the community, it almost became like a drug and an addiction. The more I wanted, and the more I gave, the more I wanted. And, after 5 years, that's when I started donating my time with the Guelph Storm. And then I was with Wrestle Canada as a strength coach. And then, it keeps going. But I find a real sense of calm and a real sense of peace through volunteerism for me, from my mental health perspective. And if I can help me by helping others, man, it's going to be done till I die.
It's a great feeling when you can help somebody, especially with volunteering. Like you said, you're not doing it for the money, just to give back, and just to it helps your mental well-being too, because you feel good about what you're doing, contributing to the city, or Big Brothers, or Special Olympics, or even what you're doing with the Guelph Storm and the Guelph Griffins football team.
And it's true. And a good friend of mine, I don't know if you know him, but his name was Kevin McCord. He was a police officer and a high school resource officer. But his catchphrase was, do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And it's such a simple set of words, but the weight behind that is pretty incredible. And I thank Kevin for sharing that with me as a colleague. And I even had the wonderful chance to supervise him as a sergeant when he was in the high school office. And if we could all do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, I think society is going to be a lot bit better.
Totally agree. And with even doing this podcast, Doug, I've met such great people like yourself, Jerry Howarth, Dan Schumann, Tom McCarthy from the NFL and CBS, and it's just been an awesome experience doing this podcast and making connections and meeting people and learning things from all my guests as well.
Well, it's true. And you just think about if someone watches your podcast and they get one little nugget of information that changes their life, that puts a smile on their face, you've done your job. But, the nice thing with podcasts is you've got such a vast sphere of influence that I've seen that, I want to challenge everyone right now. Make one stranger smile per day. Because when you look at it for over 20 years, we're into the 70,000 smiles that we can do. And if you give someone something as simple as a smile, they're going to walk away. And they're going to feel better about themselves. And at the end of your day, sit back and reflect on every smile that you created that day and realize that you earned that day. And as you wake up the next morning, I want to make 5 strangers smile today. And just keep doing that and play that little game with yourself, because if it's a karma game, whether you're religious, you're spiritual, when you put that positivity out there, man, you're going to get positivity back. And positive psychology right now, I read an article that they were talking that in 100 days, you can actually change your physiological makeup at the cell level. That if you're a negative person, after 100 days, when all your cells rejuvenate, you will charge your body towards the negative. And we all know people that are negative all the time. But when you look at the positive, if you wake up and you try to, be positive every single day, after 100 days, your cell structure is going to be positively based. And that's when you just think back when you go into people's lives and you just see people that are like, my God, the energy of these people, they're so positive. They actually kind of create that themselves. So we have the ability to change who we are and even the biochemistry of our bodies.
Totally agree, Doug, and it's your mindset too. And like I said, with what I'm doing here, Doug, I don't mean to go on about it. I've met so many positive people on my podcast. It just makes me feel good, and it makes me want to continue to improve and keep working at my goal eventually of getting in the radio. Everyone in these professions, they gave me their time. They didn't have to, and it made me feel really good because they're giving back. And if I'm lucky enough, Doug, to make it in the radio industry, I would like to pay it forward to somebody in the future that's trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do at the age of 49.
And that's fantastic. And there's the nobility. You're providing people an opportunity to give a positive message to others. That's as base as it gets. People need it. And when we look at conventional media nowadays, and I served as a media officer for 5 years with the Guelph Police Service, and I was personally seconded down to the G20. And at that point, when people, and I'm not speaking of him, but the whole concept of the fake news that Donald Trump spoke about, I saw fake news when I was down there at G20. Something happened, and it was just as simple as I was talking to a reporter from Toronto, or excuse me, she was from New York. The day before that, there was a picture of a tactical officer holding the arm of a young hippie type girl who was blowing bubbles. And everyone said, oh, that's a big bad officer. Well, what we knew was what the bubbles were liquefied with urine. So the next day when I was down there, it's about 32 degrees. We got our riot kit on. I'm talking to this girl, and all of a sudden I duck because I see something flying from my left. And all of a sudden, whack, she gets hit in the head with a water balloon. Well, as we came to our senses, we realized that the water balloon was liquefied with urine and feces. So she ran over to the news van and she said, I want to tell people what's going on. And she came back and her hair was slightly fixed. And I said, are you going to tell people what just happened? She said, I'm not allowed to. My editor only wants to know why your prime minister wasted $1 billion setting this up and why the police officers are here as an oppressive force. I said, well, first of all, the Prime Minister question, that's above my pay grade. But I said, we're not here as an oppressive force. We're here to ensure that everyone has the right to freedom of speech as per the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for Canada. But she didn't want to talk about it from that angle. She didn't want to talk about the reality of that. So at that point, I realized that media was obviously an agenda. And what you're doing now through here is you're not coming through with the Fox agenda, the CNN agenda. You're coming through with the real truthful agenda that people really need. People need good news right to nowadays. And unfortunately, when you turn on whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, there's a news story or news station there that will push their messages out. But a lot of times it's not even reality. You're pushing reality. So I commend you for that.
Well, thank you very much. And I have to admit, Doug, last year when this pandemic was at the strongest, I was getting too much news from Fox, CNN, and it was starting to affect my mental health. I was getting down in the dumps and depressed, sort of. And I just decided to watch less news. And this is when I created my podcast about 18 months ago. I started focusing on my podcast and focusing on a career direction and less doom and gloom on the news outlets.
And it's true, and I commend you for that. But a lot of people didn't have the wherewithal. And if it's on CNN, it must be real. If it's on Fox, it must be real. Yeah. But we have to use our knowledge, our critical thinking skills, and all of the skills that got us to where we are to realize that some people have an agenda, and that agenda and the news, some of the news coming out is not fact-based. It's sponsorship, it's political, and in the end, it's to make money or to push an agenda through. So we just have to take a step back and maybe ask, why are they saying it that way? Just so that we can, look at things from a 360-degree perspective.
Well, and I have so much respect for police, because your job nowadays is not the profession is not, it's changed a lot, and it's not easy because you got social media that you didn't have 23 years ago, and then you get all the news outlets more than ever before, and nowadays people don't want to take the time. There's two sides to every story, and everybody just wants to jump to the first thing somebody says as the truth.
And that's true. And that's the one albatross that law enforcement has. We can't tell you the truth really quick because of the fact that it might interfere with someone's right to privacy or right to due process to go through court. We have certain strict rules that we have to follow. But sometimes when people attack law enforcement, they just free for all. Well, why don't you tell me the name of the lady who's beaten up by the husband? Well, we're not going to, because we don't want this process to re-victimize her. Well, why can't you tell me about the name of the 17-year-old who shot up a school? Well, because under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, the criminal code says we can't do that. There's certain rules that we have to go through. And you would even see nowadays where 30 years ago, they would write, Mr. Joe White of Guelph was charged with impaired driving. His readings were 180 and 180, . We don't do that anymore because that's a fact of issue that still has to be tried in a court of law. And, you can't put out some details that everyone wants the details, but if it's going to interfere with someone's right to privacy or the prosecution of that case, we can't say anything. So it's like trying to fight a bully with one or two hands tied behind your back. They can use their whole body, but you can only use your feet.
Definitely. Okay. My next question I wanted to ask you, Doug, how difficult was it to announce your retirement from policing after 28 years?
I was ready to go. I loved my job, but I was in a situation that I had a lot more things that I wanted to accomplish in life when I was still young enough to do that. What I ended up doing was I had the privilege of meeting the Mudmen through Special Olympics when we hosted it there. And I thought, right at that time, I was on the Hopewell Homes Board, which is a board of people that operate the Hopewell homes, where there's 5 or 6 homes in Guelph, and it's a residential care facility for people suffering from autism, or even a respite for families if they want a weekend away. So I thought, how can I make my retirement mean something? So I decided to have a charity function, and we hosted it. I think there was over 200 people there. And again, we raised money for Hopewell Homes. The Mudmen were friends of mine. They came in and did it for free. We had Cliff Russell and a Guelph police band. They opened up for it. So for me, it wasn't that I was retiring from something. I was retiring to something. And that's one thing when I mentored officers, friends of mine, never retire from something, retire to something. And all too often, I've seen people retire from something and they get lost. their identity was so tied in with being a police officer that they can't let that go. You know, in my own wallet, I have a retirement badge, but I don't carry it with me anymore because that was a phenomenal time in my life, and I was very proud of that. But that's who I was. It's not who I am or who I'm going to be. So retirement for me was just getting ready to take on another challenge. I did my best. I worked my hardest. You know, I've got some bumps and bruises from the career, but I wanted to really take everything that I learned from policing and going to the police college. For me, that's like playing in a Stanley Cup championship game, where I get to have a dramatic influence over policing for the future. And so far, I've had the privilege of teaching community policing, which is one of the things I teach. All those things that I practiced, what I did for those years, I now get to teach. And I've taught that for over 4,500 recruits. And there's probably another 2,000 before I'm done. So, you know, Guelph was a phenomenal spot. It was a big pond. I became a fish in it. But I think now at the provincial level, I have a real amazing opportunity to reaffirm what policing should be from the front line. But I also teach the sergeant course in the province and the 911. So again, from a supervisory perspective, I get to teach supervisors more about that EQ stuff that we talked about. And, you know, for me, it was exciting. It was like being in the minors all those years, and then boom, I'm playing in the show.
I was going to say, and what you just said about retirement, Doug, not just for the police profession, really goes to other professions too. Because I know some people who retired, they were lucky enough to retire in their 50s, and then they didn't know what to do with their life. So even if you are lucky to retire from a job financially, you still need to do something with your life. And what you just said, totally agree with you there.
And you have to. And, you know, I've retired from the Guelph Police Service to the Ontario Police College. I'll retire from the Ontario Police College. The book is coming out next year. I've got the social media platforms. I'm now actively coaching several proteges where they'll call me up weekly, and this is paid, where I'll help them with their life skills. We'll get them to figure out their why so they know how and what to move forward. So I'm never going to be the guy that sits around. I always joke that I'm going to rest when I'm dead, or when I'm in a wheelchair or a rocking chair when I'm 90 years of age. I'm going to sit back and go, man, that was one hell of a ride. I'm so glad I'm a has-been versus a never was. And all too often in life, people, they just never tried or they never apply it. And, you know, sometimes people say, well, you're fortunate. Do you realize that I can't even skate? Yet I've got four OHL championship rings. How did I get that job? Simple. I saw Tom Bertuzzi at Gold's Gym. I didn't think that he's being trained properly. I contacted Mike Kelly up, who's an amazing, you want to talk about adult mentors, Mike Kelly, Jim Rooney, those guys, Stu Lang from Griffin Football. And I said, Mr. Kelly, Todd's being trained improperly. Can I come and volunteer as your strength and conditioning coach? And he said, what do you know about hockey, son? Nothing. But because of the skill sets I had as a running back and a receiver, I explained that, and he gave me that opportunity. And here we are 26 years later. So
go ahead. Sorry.
The bottom line is ask people. You know, if you want to do something, ask. They might say no, but more importantly, they might say yes.
And that leads to my next question right here. How did you come about being the Guelph Storm strength and conditioning coach and the peer mentor? And you just brought that up.
Well, great. I guess we're on the same wavelength there. The neat thing with that is I got to meet EJ McGuire at the same time. And my Lord, EJ McGuire and Mike Kelly, those two men, they just drip credibility and professionalism. And they are like such amazing people. And, you know, I was crushed when EJ passed away 6 or 7 years ago by cancer. But he gave me a chance. And, you know, I have a mantra that I use now for leadership. Says, lead with your best self, model the behavior you seek of others, and always create an environment where other people can succeed. Mike Kelly and EJ McGuire always led with their best self. They modeled the behavior they sought of others, and they created an environment where other young men, other staff members, and myself can succeed. And that's how I joined with them. And again, we've had a great 26-year relationship. I've announced my retirement to the Guelph Storm ownership, that this will be my last year. This is my last season with them as the peer mentor. I'm fortunate to say that we've got some great succession planning there. Brandon Buck used to be with the Guelph Storm. Yep. He's been hired by the Guelph Police Service, and Ryan Horvath. So it's really nice that those two young gentlemen were proteges of mine, and now they're going to take over the reins. And it's the same thing with the university football team. This is my last year as their peer mentor and their community coach. and I'm going to be turning the reins over to Daniel Erbschad, who is a Guelph young man, played football with Guelph, and he's been a police officer in Guelph for about 3 or 4 years. So again, I'll always be there as a resource for them, but it's nice to turn the hands over to some younger people so they can have their shot at it.
That's true. And I know Johnny Augustine as well. And I'm hoping to have him on my podcast one day. And his story is great too. And he's a really good guy from talking to him.
Oh, definitely. And I'll hook that up with you, because I always joke that Johnny's the son that I never had. And he's a phenomenal guy. Both he and Michelle and I mentored him while in his time here. And he's a very, very dear friend. And the neat thing about Johnny is, much of all of his accolades, all through my career mentoring him, if there was something special I wanted or I had, he would put on a suit and he'd come. I won a community award from the Guelph Police Service. So it wasn't a one-way friendship. It was definitely a two-way friendship. And through him, I met Orion Edwards, and Orion's become one of my proteges and one of my dear friends. And Orion actually played football with Guelph. He was going to go the pro route. He blew his ACL. Now he's on the Canadian Olympic bobsled team. So when you look at Johnny Augustine, or you look at Orion Edwards, I actually highlight both their stories in the book, where they were told no, like we were talking about a little while ago. No, you can't play in the CFL. No, you won't have a career. They took a step back. They did the step to the side and around it. Their no meant next opportunity. If Johnny would have listened to people, he would have never been a Grey Cup champion. And if Orion listened to people, he wouldn't be on the Canadian bobsled team. So don't let people say no. Use that as next opportunity.
Definitely agree with you on that, Doug. And that leads to my next question as well. Can you just tell us what your role with the Storm entails, and what is the greatest satisfaction in working with these young hockey players who are trying to become pros? In some cases, they go into other professions from their OHL careers.
This is a fantastic question. So for the first 20 years, I was the strength coach as well as the peer mentor. So obviously the strength coach, that speaks for itself. But I would be there as a bridge from the players, between the coaching staff, the parents, and the ownership. But I was a trusted bridge because the ownership believed in me. Every year in training camp, we would meet with the guys for about an hour or two, and we go on the different rules, the regulations, the different laws, because you've got some American kids coming in or some European players coming in, where the laws, the driving, and just the different rules will be different. So we wanted to make sure that we gave our young people knowledge is power in a casual situation, that hopefully they can be in an emergent situation. We would also talk to them, realizing that they've got a bit of a target on their back. They, especially with the Guelph Storm, they've got the potential, if they're good enough, to make millions and millions of dollars. So we wanted to educate these young men so that they're aware of some of the evils that are existing out there in society, so that they wouldn't get caught up with it. Because a lot of the guys come from small town Ontario, and we wanted to make sure that they didn't get caught up in that way. Periodically, if unfortunately, over the years, we've had some super fans that start to bridge gaps and have crushes on the guys. So we've had to, intervene there and tell them to take a step back. But a lot of times too, if young people were going to get into trouble, they all have my personal cell number, and it'd be like, "Hey, Pfluger, what do you think? Get yourself out of there," or, "Don't be doing that." So I was a resource for them. So that was kind of my role with them. The Guelph Storm, the biggest satisfaction, I think, for me was all my buddies played rep hockey. We couldn't afford it. And to be seen as a valuable member of the Guelph Storm family and be there for the coaches. Like, I still talk to a lot of the coaches and the players, and, to see like the Brandon Bucks and the Ryan Horvath now take the torch that I was there before. And, I think I probably, there was Mac Jones, and there's just so many guys that I've seen come through police college, and they're saying, "Pfluger, I am because of you." And that makes you feel really special. But we have doctors, lawyers, MBAs, and it's just so neat to see that hockey is what brought us all together, but it gave us the template of success, whether it was on the ice or off the ice. And the majority of the players that don't go pro will go to university, and they'll go out there and they'll be phenomenal people. But the funnest thing with that is meeting their kids, because, hey, this is my strength coach Pfluger, and then they get to, or I've even helped now coach some of their kids, and just that circle of life. That's been the real special thing with the Guelph Storm. It is an economic engine, but there's a tremendous family behind it, that outside of the finances, people there to make money. It is a business. But outside of that, the business is creating family. And, when you go around and you just see some of the parents of players that I coached, like an Andrew Long, his parents, his mom and dad, "Hey, Pfluger, how are you?" Just to be held in such high esteem is what really mattered to me with respect to being part of the Storm. And I'm still there, and I will miss it. But again, it's time that I start doing some stuff for Pflug for a change.
I was going to say, and that's one of the reasons the Storm have been so successful in their 30 years is not just the hockey program, but off the ice, like the work you were doing as a strengths coach and a peer mentor to these young hockey players.
Well, it's true. Like you had Donna Robin, who was the educational person, or then you had Colleen Driscoll. And again, it's creating an environment where a young man can succeed. And it's not just on the ice. We've had Dr. Neil Widmeyer, who, again, an amazing guy. He was our sports psychologist with the Storm for 25 years. He passed away with cancer 2-3 years ago. Great friend of EJ. He was my roommate at the Memorial Cup out in Kelowna in 2004. And he was like, Pflugger, you're like 38 years of age. Do you mind having a 70-year-old roommate? Hell no. We had a great time. But again, regardless of what brings us there, when they bring those special people together, it's a bond that will transcend time and even being with the team. So even though I'm not going to be physically there, I'm always going to be a Guelph Storm alum, as I'll always be a Griffin football alum. And that's the pride, is in knowing that you were or are.
And one thing I love about doing the camera work is I get there a couple hours before the game to help set up, and the players recognize me, and because I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I wear my Eagles hat and shirt. And some of these players, even from 2 years ago, they're like, "Hey, it's the Eagles guy," and it makes you feel good that these guys, you actually remember who this camera guy is, and it makes you feel like a part of the team, and you get to know some of these guys off the ice.
And that makes me proud to hear you say that, because we always tell the guys that realize that they're in a pretty good position. And there's a lot of people that look up to them. And I know the Guelph Storm has about 6 or 7 different awards for community service. And Michelle and I actually started a community service award at Griffin Football called the University of Guelph Griffin Football Pflug Family Community Service Award. But the fact that you can speak that highly of some of these players before a game, when they're supposed to be focusing in on playing a sport where they're going to be watched 24/7, 365 days a year for that one mistake they make, they're actually going outside themselves and they're being kind to you. So that makes me very proud of them as well.
Definitely. And I just got a couple more questions for you, Doug.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite, most memorable Guelph Storm team or teams throughout the years?
Wow. I think the 98 team obviously was pretty special. Chris Height was a phenomenal captain and a phenomenal leader. And that group of young men were amazing. And I look at so many accomplishments they've had off the field or not the field, but since playing hockey. Obviously, the 2004 Memorial Cup was pretty special. But, there's been so many nice young men that I still talk to on a daily basis. I still talk with a Jason Jackman, a guy that by size, he shouldn't have did what he did, I still talk to like Tim Priamo and, Morgan McCormick and some of the Guelph kids. And, we have a private Facebook group that we all follow each other's lives, and I get to see their kids and this, that, the other thing. Dwayne Hay and I talk all the time. Even when Todd Bertuzzi retired his jersey, I hadn't seen her talk to him for like 10 or 15 years. I was in his wedding party. But when he saw me in that crowded room, it was Pflugger. He came running over and gave me a big hug, and I got to introduce him to Michelle. So even there, we hadn't seen each other in 10 or 12 years, but we were there for Bert's jersey, and he dropped whatever he had. It was like a bull in a china shop coming through people, and got the biggest, most heartfelt hug ever. And we haven't talked since then. But that's kind of the neat thing with the Storm is, everyone goes on and has lives, but when you do come back, it's still pretty special, and you recapture that magic. And it's the magic because we went to battle together. Regardless if you're a stick boy, if you're a trainer, or you're on the ice, we went together as a battle together as a family. Everyone doing their job meant that we would all be successful. And that was what was pretty special there.
Okay. Just got 2 more questions for you. I guess we'll go with this one. Can you just tell us about your position with the University of Guelph Griffins Football Club?
Yeah, it's amazing. Tom Arnott was actually the Wilfrid Laurier University coach that recruited me to play at Laurier when I was in high school. I ended up going to Guelph, as we know, but he came back about 20 years ago as the head coach of Griffin football. And he called me up and said, "Hey, Pflugger, would you mind coming on board as our law enforcement mentor?" I'm like, "Sure, no problem." I really like Tom, and I thought this is just another great way I can come and give back. So basically, in training camp, we do the same type of a talk. We tell people the lay of the land, what the rules are. We advise them that, you're bigger guys, you go downtown. Unfortunately, sometimes people are going to want to fight you. We talk to them about, self-defense means retreating before it means punching back, and just helping those young men go through that. So that's been very exceptional over the years, because, again, you got like usually 90 to 100 guys per year. And I think we have about 45 people since I've started that have all become police, fire, or ambulance workers. So that's one thing I'm very proud of, is that, I exposed these young men to what being an emergency responder is, and now 45 of them have taken up those jobs as well. So that's something I'm very proud of. But even beyond that, with the community outreach, I talked to Stu Lang, and Stu is another phenomenal man. I just respect everything he stands for. He's one of the kindest, most amazing men that I've ever met. But I asked him, could we do a community hero segment? And he, sure, tell me more. So basically every home game, and we haven't been able to do it because of COVID, but every home game we would honor a community hero. We would give them a jacket that said Griffin football on the front, community hero on the back. We'd give them as many tickets as they wanted for the game so that they could bring their friends and family there. And a mainstay of that has been big brothers, big sisters. So we would bring the big brother of the year, the little brother, big sister. Every year they come and their families. We do women of distinction because we want to show that we've got some phenomenal ladies in our community, or if people choose to identify as that. So usually that's about 15 people every year. We've brought Special Olympics coaches. We've brought business people, all people that do phenomenal things for the society, never ask for anything, but we want to show them that we appreciate it. And even beyond that, not so much as adults, we bring the the safety patroller of the year, the boy and the girl, through the Guelph Police Service, just to recognize these young leaders and how exceptional they were, so that, the praise that they're getting now, maybe they are going to be the next president of a university, just because someone said, you're investing in others, so we want to invest in you. So that's kind of what we do with Griffin football. Other than that, right now I run the @Griffins Lair Twitter account and the University of Guelph Griffin football Facebook page. And generally I'm on the sidelines during the game, which is really cool, where I'll do a lot of photos for the players, just from the player's mind's eye, not from a media mind's eye. And it's still nice to be in the bump and the grind and hear the emotion of the sidelines. And it was funny, 2 years ago, I was just about to take a photo of Joe Breinhart smashing into a guy, and there was about 450 pounds of meat smashing in there. Well, when they hit forward, they ricocheted off and they hit me. So I've got this photo of this amazing picture. The next photo is of the sky, because I was flat on my ass taking a picture of the sun. And it was kind of funny because one of our players, Justice, came over. He said, "Mr. Pflug, do you want to help up?" And I'm laying there going, yeah, I felt like I got hit by a freight train. Here I am, about 52 years of age. He helps me up. As he helps me up, he steps on my big toe. I split my big toe open. I'm thinking my aspirations to play university football are gone. I get wiped out on the sideline, taking a picture, and I got a boo-boo on my big toe, and I can't walk now. So it was quite the humbling experience. But again, Coach Ryan sent a very heartfelt letter to me, appreciating all the work that I had done, and we want to make this a really good season. But just to show you how special both the teams are, Donnie, I talked to earlier how Donnie wears in hospice. During training camp, I advised the coach that, and I said, could we do a small little video for Donnie? And they did. So we got the whole team together, and Coach Ryan is like, "Hey, Donnie, you got to fight this cancer. You can do this. You can do this. What do we say, boys?" And the whole team screamed, "Fight cancer." Donnie,
Awesome.
That was the end of August. He still talks about it.
Awesome.
And again, those small acts of kindness, making a guy who's dying feel a little bit better about himself.
That's what it's about. And I wanted to give a couple of shout outs to a couple of friends of mine. They're with Special Olympics, or they were. Mark Richardson,
Yep.
he's been one of my first followers on my podcast, and Ryan Rigamidis, huge Chicago Bulls fan, Yankees fan, Giants fan, and they both watch my podcast all the time, and they're both good guys.
Well, and I love them both. Ryan and I go way, way back. I was good friends with his dad. Used to see Ryan at the Storm games. We used to talk Storm hockey all the time. And Mark Jamieson actually is one of my athletes from the Special Olympics that I used to make run up and down the stairs at the football stadium. So Mark loves me, but when we work out, he hates me.
That's one thing. Hey, I'm doing well with the podcast, but that one thing, my next goal now is to lose 25, 30 pounds. So I have to take my mindset that I use for my podcast and for hopefully a career on radio, and start applying it to my body.
And that's so important, and that's amazing, teachable, and a takeaway for anyone watching today. If you're successful in one thing, take what you're doing there and use it for something else. Just as you said, you're being very successful with your podcast. You have to take your work ethic, you have to take your vision and your passion, and just take it works for you. So just take that and just change what you're using it for, if it's your fitness or what have you, and you're going to be successful because you already know how to win.
Well, and now the easy part is to lose the weight, Doug, from what I've done in the past. The hard part is to keep it off and maintain it.
Yeah, it's the lifestyle. And that's the one thing. You don't want to lose weight. You just want to change your lifestyle, and then you will lose weight after that.
Yes. And my last question I wanted to ask you, and I do this with all my guests too, any advice for those looking to pursue a career in policing, and where, again, can my audience find you on social media and your website?
If anyone wants to be a police officer, they're going to have to get an education. Nowadays, like the OPP won't even look at you if you don't have a university degree. So make sure they get some education. Make sure they're giving of their time through community service. If you're in your course of study, take courses on psychology just to understand people better, on addictions, on youth-related issues. Because when you look at most calls for service, it has usually going to deal with an addiction or some type of a social issue. So make sure that they understand that. If people want to get a hold of me on Twitter, it's at IronWell360. Instagram is IronWell360. And then my website is www.riseupandexcel.ca. And even if they want to ask me a specific question towards the policing career, tell them to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to share 5 or 10 minutes with them and pay it forward and give it back to them. So hopefully that one day they'll be able to do the same as what I would do for them.
Okay. Well, Doug, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me some time. I kept you over 40 minutes, but I really enjoyed talking to you and learning stuff that I didn't even know about before in your policing career and background. And maybe, again, I can have you on as a guest in the future.
Yeah, let's do that in January, and then I can meet up with you and give you a signed copy of the book.
Definitely, because I definitely would like to get a book and read it, and whatever can help improve me and learning too. Everybody needs to keep learning. You're never too old to keep learning or switching careers either.
And there's a few blogs that I've written on that website, so maybe check some of those out. That might help you to formalize your future successes as well.
Definitely. Okay, Doug, I just want to say I hope you have a great day and weekend, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you on social media.
Thank you, and God bless everyone.
You too. Thanks, Doug. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Anyways, everybody, I hope you enjoyed my podcast today with Doug. He was a longtime policeman in the city of Guelph for 28 years, and he was a strength coach and peer mentor with the Guelph Storm and with the University of Guelph Griffins football club, and also been involved as a coach with the Special Olympics here in Guelph for 20 years as well. And speaking of the Guelph Storm have 2 games this weekend. Tomorrow night at the Sarnia Sting, 7:05 face-off, and then Sunday, October 24th at the Sleeman Center against Kitchener Rangers at 2 p.m. at the Sleeman Center on Rogers TV and CJOY 1460 with Larry Malott, or 570 News in Kitchener with Mike Farwell and Chris Pope. And also, guys, some other sports news. Philadelphia Eagles, go Birds. 2 and 4 are going to Vegas this Sunday to take on the Raiders at 4:05 kickoff. And then on Halloween Sunday, 1 o'clock, travel to the Motor City to take on the winless Lions at Ford Field. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go to the game yet until the border opens up November 8th for essential traveling as well. And we have Red Wings hockey tonight. Their last 4-game homestand to start the season at Little Caesars Arena. Tonight they take on the Calgary Flames at 7:30, and we'll see if Tyler Bertuzzi, Guelph Storm alumni, can keep up his hot hand. He's already got 5 goals and 2 assists, I believe, so far this year. And you also have Robbie Fabry, Giovanni Smith, and Pliz Suter as well. So there is a Guelph connection with the Detroit Red Wings as well. So anyways, guys, I just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you again to my guest, Doug, for coming on today. And just after my podcast, guys, the audio version of Live with CDP is on Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, and I am also hoping to have my own website up before Christmas as well. And also StreamYard is also the official live stream provider of Live with CDP podcasts. And you guys can also check me out on TikTok at Live with CDP on TikTok. I post a lot of video content there as well. And also, guys, Live with CDP merchandise. Just put another order in. Podcast shirts are 15, coffee mugs are 15, and my new podcast hats are 18 as well, if anybody's interested in one of those. Anyways, guys, you can also check out Doug's website again. Please check it out, riseupandexcel.ca as well. And you can also just put on Doug. You can follow Doug on Twitter at IronWill360, same as on Instagram, IronWill360, and his Facebook page too, IronWill360 as well. I hope the Guelph Griffins do really well this year. I know they beat Western and they upset Waterloo the other day. And I should pay a little more attention to university football. It is good football here as well. And hopefully maybe one day I'll have Winnipeg Blue Bomber, Grey Cup champion. Hopefully maybe Johnny Augustine come on as well, depending on his schedule as well. Anyways, guys, my next podcast, I'm just going to put that on here. The next Live with CDP podcast will be this Tuesday, October 26th at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 on the West Coast. My guest will be Chris Spinelli. He is an actor, stand-up comedian in the LA, California area, and I believe he's a Dodgers fan too. So I'm going to have to talk to Chris about the Dodgers right now that are down 3-1 to Atlanta in the National League Championship Series. But the Dodgers last year were down 3-1 to Atlanta and came back and 1-7. Don't count the Dodgers out. And Houston's now up 3-2 on Boston in the ALCS. The next two games, or the next game, is in Houston. Don't count the Red Sox out either. And I think the Red Sox play better on the road than they do at home in this series, but we'll see what happens there as well. So anyways, and one thing I wanted to mention about my guest, Doug, he was recently honored by being named to the Governor General's list of 123 remarkable Canadians. So I should have told him congratulations on that, but I just wanted to mention that before I go. So anyways, guys, I'm just going to do a little quick video preview of the Eagles Raiders, and then we're going to call it a show. Just 1 second, guys. I'm going to put this on, and we'll just preview the Raiders and Eagles for this Sunday.
4 Philadelphia Eagles will travel to Las Vegas to play the 4-2 Raiders on Sunday for Week 7. The Eagles are coming off another mediocre performance offensively versus the Bucs, led by rookie head coach and play caller Nick Sirianni. The Birds only managed to gain 213 total yards of offense versus the Bucs. The Eagles' first half struggles continued with a 7-21 deficit going into halftime. Jalen Hurts would lead the Eagles in an attempt to come back, scoring 2 touchdown runs in the third and fourth quarter.
Hurts, touchdown, Philadelphia.
But it wouldn't be enough, as Philadelphia would fall short at home. The Raiders would have a completely different week after head coach John Gruden was forced to resign. Special teams coach Rick Bisaccia was promoted as intern head coach. Many people doubted the Raiders going into their matchup with the Broncos, but they were able to rally around their new head coach and get the victory on the road. Carr opened the game with a 48-yard touchdown strike to Henry Ruggs.
He's down there. He's got it. Ruggs at the 5, and he takes it in.
And hit Ruggs for a 40-yarder later in the game to set up a Josh Jacobs touchdown. Carr would go on to throw for 341 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Jacobs and Drake combined to run 20 times for 87 yards as the Raiders consistently found success on offense. Carr hooked up with Kenyon Drake for a 31-yard score, and Drake added a rushing touchdown, capping off his best day in silver and black. The same can't be said for the Eagles running back duo of Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell, with the latter seeing no rushing attempts versus the Bucs. Sanders had a nice 23-yard run, but only ended up getting 9 carries on the game for 56 yards. Instead, quarterback Jalen Hurts led the Eagles in carries with 10 attempts for 44 yards and 2 scores. Miles Sanders received a carry or a target on 24% of the 45 offensive snaps versus the Bucs. Max Crosby has been a madman this year, and that didn't stop against the Broncos. Teddy Bridgewater was brought down 3 times by Mad Max. The D-line was clearly a force in a team victory that snapped a 2-game losing streak that leaves the Raiders tied for first place in the AFC West with a 4-2 record. The Eagles will have Lane Johnson back to help solidify the offensive line that will need all the help it can get going up against a strong Raiders D-line. The Eagles lost by 6, but the loss felt like a 20-point blowout at home. Eagles coaching staff has a lot of question marks, which is ironic considering the team they face has an intern head coach. But 1-0 Bisaccia looks like a solid leader and surrounded by a great staff. That is enough for me to give the Raiders the edge at home against the Eagles. For the Eagles to have have a chance in this one, head coach Nick Sirianni will have a balanced play calling afternoon in Las Vegas. Thanks for watching. See you every Tuesday for the Eagles game preview. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel for daily Eagles content. I'm Bry Wolf. Fly Eagles fly, and keep it real always.
Anyways, guys, so I agree with what the gentleman just said there. It's going to be tough for the Eagles to upset the Raiders in Vegas, and we'll see what happens. But go Birds always. Anyways, guys, I'm going to call it a show, but I just want to say thanks again to Doug for coming on today, live with CDP. It was great talking to him about his career as a police officer and his work as with the police teaching college, and also with the Griffins and the Storm as well. Again, my next live with CDP podcast, Tuesday, October 26th, 8 o'clock. Chris Spinelli, he's an actor and stand-up comedian from the LA, California area, will be on live with CDP. Anyways, guys, everyone who watches this on my YouTube channel, thank you so much. Facebook, Twitter, really appreciate it. I'm also looking for more subscribers on my YouTube channel. All my previous podcasts are on there if you'd like to watch them there, and also audio as well with Apple Podcasts, Google, etc. So, all right, guys, I'm going to call it a show. I hope you guys have a great night. Enjoy the Thursday night football game, Denver at Cleveland at 8:20 kickoff from Cleveland. Browns have a lot of guys hurt. Case Keenum is starting instead of Baker Mayfield, who's hurt. I'm going to pick the Browns to win 23-20. 23-20 Browns. This is a must win for them. They're 3-3, and they need to keep pace in the AFC. So again, I'm picking the Browns to win 23-20 over Denver tonight on Thursday Night Football. Anyways, guys, have a great night, great weekend. Thanks again for watching live with CDP podcast. We'll see you Tuesday night, October 26th at 8 o'clock with Chris Spinelli. Good night, guys.